Hey everyone, it's Brian. Today we are going to be talking about this book, The Fighting Tomahawk by Dwight C. McClemore. I mentioned it in one of my previous videos on the PVC training Tomahawk, saying that I had just received the book for Christmas and that I was going to be working through it, studying it, and at some point putting up a video review of the book. Now this is going to be a multi-part review. First section is just going to be talking about the book, the things I liked about it, the basic way it's set up, and then my later videos, I'm probably going to shoot 2 more, will actually be physical training from the book, giving demonstrations of some of the techniques. Now I'll go ahead and say this from the beginning. I'm not going to go through everything that's in this book. I'm not going to put all that material into this video because this is not, my book. I did not write this, and if you want to know everything that's in there, you should go out and you should buy the book. Mr. McClemore obviously put a lot of work into the book, and I definitely feel like if you're really interested in it, you should go out and get it because I believe it will be worth your time. Alright, now just to get started, this book, as Mr. McClemore states in the beginning, is not based on any historical text in the sense that there is no historical training manual for fighting with a tomahawk that was used to create all of these techniques. Now, historical documents were consulted, but in addition to that, Mr. McClemore looked through manuals on saber fighting, knife fighting, and used his own personal experience, which is rather extensive, with various edge weapons, and then used human mechanics to come up with these techniques. His thought on this was there's only so many things that the human body can do, and so the things that the human body can do that would be most suited for the tomahawk are what is covered in this book. Also, this book covers the use of the tomahawk in tandem with a long knife, which was commonly used, and since he has already written a book on using a long knife, a Bowie knife, which primarily deals with the saber grip. In this book, he primarily covers the use of the long knife in the reverse grip. So that is what he'll be talking about. So, just to get started, we've gotten that out of the way. Let's go through how this book is set up. Now you have basically 5 sections. Your first section covers what's known as the basics. Your second section goes through offensive use of the tomahawk. Your third is defensive use of the tomahawk. Your fourth is the use of the long knife. And then your final section deals with what's known as engagements. These are actual scenarios that you can practice with another person. So just kind of take it from the top. The basics section, you're talking about stances, grips. Each of these sections gives a history, so you have a history of the tomahawk, a history of its use, how it's carried. All of that stuff is covered in the basics chapter. Once you move into the offense chapter, you talk about the different types of blows, you talk about raking, you talk about chopping versus slicing, punches, all of the different types of offensive blows that you could use the tomahawk for are covered there. The defense, pretty self-explanatory there. Talking about deflecting with the butt of the tomahawk, with the edge of the tomahawk, using a 2-hand deflection, using the intercepting punch, all different techniques that are covered in this book. When you get to the long knife, again, he covers the history of the use of the long knife, talks about the different, what he's talking about when he says long knife, talks about how that it was carried historically, and then goes through all the other things that we've talked about. He talks about offensive and defensive use of the long knife, how it's drawn when it's drawn with the tomahawk, how it's carried when it's carried with the tomahawk. The last section, which we'll kind of round out with, is the engagement section. Most of this is 2-person engagement scenarios where you have a whole drill that you go through. You can go through as an individual by yourself or with a partner. He talks through all of those steps individually or with a partner. And then at the very end there are some individual solo drills that are specifically just for that. He also in this section goes through and gives a training schedule for this, where you can go through each of the different exercises that's given, in addition to the engagements at the end, and a progression just to get you started off. At the very end, it also has a short section on throwing the tomahawk and also on using an Indian war club as a substitute for the tomahawk for all this training, since most of the techniques are very, very similar, if not identical. So that's the way the book is set up. Now, as far as my views on the book, I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was very well laid out. It covers a very logical progression. The detail of the illustrations, I thought, conveyed the picture very well. I've seen some people say that the way the illustrations are put on the page are hard to follow. Now, this could be true if you look at each page and you expect the page to follow from left to right, and that to always be the sequence of events with the pictures. That's not the way this book is set up. Quite frequently the book will be, it might be left to right, it might be right to left, but if you actually look at the illustrations, and I'll pull up an example here for just a second here. If you actually look at the illustrations and the movements that are being done, sometimes you can't go left to right and still have all of the picture be on the same page. So if you look here, let's talk about doing a tomahawk punch. If you look at this picture, this side over here, which would normally be where you would start, is actually the finishing action. But if you look closely, I'm not sure how well this is going to show up in the video, but if you look closely, each of the steps is numbered. So that would be my advice if you're looking at this book, is just follow the numbers. If you had done this left to right, there's no way you would have been able to get an illustration this size on one page and still have it make any sense at all. So follow the numbers and it will help you to decipher the pictures. In addition to just having pictures of the actions, he also shows pictures of the footwork for each of the actions, which I thought was immensely helpful, especially in the engagement section, to really understand what he's talking about, because he talks through each of the engagements and then he shows the picture of the arm and the tomahawk actions and then the pictures of the actions of the feet. So it really is a full tutorial on how to do each of the sections, which I found very, very easy to follow. If you have any background in any sort of martial arts or combat arts of any kind, it's very easy to apply what you already know to this. If you don't know anything starting off, it's very easy to pick this up. One final note on just the book as it sits. If you are going to train in this a lot, it would probably be a good idea to get his long and bowie knife book as well. That way you have the full range of techniques, because this book only covers the reverse grip technique for the knife, which there is really no best technique. It's best to know all the techniques so that you can use whichever technique you need for a given situation. So that is The Fighting Tomahawk by Dwight C. McClemore. As I've said, this is just a talk through of the book. My next video will actually go through training and techniques. I'll do some demonstrations of some of the drills that are covered in here, because each of those chapters with each type, like when the offense section, when you go to the cut, there's actually a drill just for cutting and chopping. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.